What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the NFL Betting Show. I can't believe it is already week 10 in the NFL season. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez. We've got our guys Prop, and we've got our guys Sam Choudhury in there. I'm already showing you some of our plays, but we're going to take them behind the curtain there. By the way, you gotta subscribe to these YouTube streams over on the FTN channel. I mean, Prop, yesterday we did the NBA betting show, and that was pretty profitable. I know I hit with the Nikola Jokic. I hit with Derek White putting up threes. I mean, the man, I think, hit 7 threes. I tailed you, by the way, Prop, when it came to Sabonis and his assists in that one as the Kings got it done against the Toronto Raptors. And you know Sam is sharp as well in the NBA on those streams. But we turn the page here to the NFL version. We do this on Thursday mornings. Hit subscribe. If you want to get down with us, hit us up in the comments as well, whether you're double tapping some of our plays or if you want to ask us some questions. We will let you know throughout the show what people are saying and how we respond to them. What's going on, guys? Sam, let me start with you just generally. We're already halfway through the season, what are you surprised by? What are the trends that you're hanging your hat on at this point?
Yeah, I feel like week 10 is sort of when we sort of figure out who teams are, what their identity is going to be for the rest of the season, who the contenders are, who the pretenders are. So I feel a lot more comfortable, going heavier and picking sides around this point of the season, just because I have a better gauge of the teams and sort of just from what I've seen all throughout the season. I mean, health and longevity becomes huge at this point of the season. We already see a number of teams just limping to the finish line trying to get through the season. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot more certainty at this point of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Prop, what about you? Now I know you look at all these trends, especially with some of these props. Or do you think some of these things are now baked in? We know the good run defenses. We know the good passing offenses at this point. Who can get pressure? Which cornerbacks we want to attack? I know you look at that wide receiver cornerback tool over at FTN all the time. So some of these data points, I think the sample size is good enough for us to click submit on these bets, right?
Yes, sir. I think it's like you said, it gets kind of easier. If you will, just knowing what teams to target on a weekly basis, knowing what matchups to target with these corners and receivers, and for the running backs, I think it's gotten easier as the weeks go along too. Because thanks to you showed me the explosive run tool on Stats Hub, and it's been insane. So, longest rush is worked with that. The touchdowns, just the rushing yards over. So I think it's easier to find those matchups that you want to target now.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to get down with the FTN crew, okay, there's plenty of promo codes. Me and Meanie are on Sirius XM from 1 to 3 o'clock. We do FTN show if you want a little bit of a discount. Prop, I'm glad that you are digging into Stats Hub. By the way, tonight I'm on the Derrick Henry longest rush yet again. My man has gone over it. He's had a 20-yard run in 8 of the 9 games for the Ravens so far this season. Only in week 1 against the Chiefs has he not. By the way, guys, I'm also holding a 75-1 ticket for Derrick Henry to be the league MVP, and that is now down to 20-1 in some places. So, do I think it's a quarterback award? Yes, but if the man gets 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns, which he might, they may not be able to deny him. But I digress. Listen up, Sam. We're going to start with you. You said that at this point of the season, you're a little bit more comfortable betting sides. And I know you're thinking about Buffalo, who has been really good lately. I think they have 30 or more points in their last 3 games ever since the acquisition of Amari Cooper. Josh Allen is proving himself to be a, top tier candidate for MVP himself. And I think it sounds like you like Josh Allen as a greater than sign over Joe Flacco this week.
Yeah, this one doesn't really make sense to me. I was surprised to see it. It was only 3.5. You see some 4s now. But I mean, I understand they're going on the road, but I feel like these two teams are on 2 completely different tiers. I like taking this one, the Bills -3, and another one that I posted this morning was Bills to win the first half. Bills to win the game. It's plus 105 was the best number that I found. So, yeah, getting plus money there. I think it's a game that Buffalo is just going to dominate. You see what they've done the last month. They've won 4 games in a row. And Josh Allen, I mean, he's been playing at an MVP level. Most books, depending on where you look, it's him and Lamar Jackson now as the co-MVP favorites. And you look at it going into week 10, They're one of only 4 teams with 7 wins on the season. They trail only Detroit in point differential. They're up at plus 9.7. By our numbers, they're the 6th best team in the NFL, 6th overall in team DVOA, 4th on offense. They're averaging the 2nd most points per game, again, right behind Detroit. And you look at the Colts, I mean, it's pretty much the opposite. They've lost back-to-back games now. And we thought the switch from from Anthony Richardson to Joe Flacco was to help improve the offense. I mean, the defense has been terrible all season long, but the hope was that the offense would be better. But we saw Flacco do pretty well in his spot starts. But you look at him last week, he threw for less than 180 yards on 27 dropbacks, averaged 6.6 yards per attempt, and finished with a 14.7 QBR. So I don't think he's going to be that bad because of Vikings. I mean, Vikings give up a lot of production, but by our numbers, they're the best defense in terms of DVOA. And Buffalo, I mean, they're not the best defense, but they're not any rollover either. I just don't think the Colts can hang with Buffalo. Again, like I said, they have the 2nd highest point differential in the league, and they're just clicking on all cylinders. I think Amari Cooper, I think he's going to be integrated into the offense more this week. Hopefully he's healthy. But yeah, regardless, I mean, I understand that Colts getting points just because they're playing in Indianapolis, but still, I feel like this line's way too short. So I'm fine going within a field goal. Again, I like the plus money to win the first half and win the game.
Yeah, I like that, Sam, as well. Listen, Buffalo looks really good right now. To me, they are in the kind of top tier in the AFC, in my opinion, along with Kansas City and, of course, the Baltimore Ravens. We got me versus me saying, hey, everyone. We got a lot of people out there giving props. Yo, Daily Picks Greens in the space yet again, giving me props for my Wu-Tang hoodie the last week, but always shouting out prop to be sure. And Prop, I want to go to you next because you also are on someone in this game. Shout out to my guy, Chris Meany. Again, we had Ray Davis of the Buffalo Bills join the show last week. A really great interview, a really great guy. He has been kind of being part of the offense, but really via the passing game. And you have the other Buffalo back in the passing game here as well, Prop, right?
Yes, sir. Going with James Cook, over 14.5 receiving yards. Minus 117 on Caesars. I mean, Cook has just been a wagon to this number, even dating back to last season. So out of his last 20 games, he's over in 13 of those, averaging pretty much 23 receiving yards per game, over in 6 out of 8 games this season. And when you look at the Colts, they're allowing a 70% completion percentage. So that is 3rd worst in the league. And then they're a team that we've been targeting for receiving running backs pretty much all season, and dating back to all last year too, because of the zones that they're running. If you look at the FTN's fantasy points against defense versus position tool, the Colts are allowing 35.2 receiving yards to running backs per game. So I know it's a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a split, but Davis does see the field. But when it comes to the receiving work, Cook is involved as well. So I think this is a number he'll get to pretty easily. He's averaging 3 targets a game in the season too.
All right, listen, and sometimes all you need is one, especially these Bills out of the backfield. Like I've seen Ray Davis, like I mentioned, 50-yard catch. Just last week, Ray Davis took a wheel route up the right side against Miami for a 60-plus yard touchdown. So I'm with that as well, Prop. You're getting all sorts of love here in the comments. We got Wavy Vision saying, what's up, Prop? And to FTN. We got people shouting it out, people laughing. And I want to give a shout out also to the GM Network saying ever since he started the fantasy football adventure, loved watching it all the way back in the day on FNTSY radio. I remember that. Also a big shout out to Jake Seeley and Pat Mayo, Spitting Speeds. That is myself, the Spitting Statistician, and of course, Chris. So let me give you my first pick of the week, guys. I'm going to Atlanta and New Orleans, and give me Bijan Robinson over his rushing number against New Orleans. I mean, it is a dumpster fire. They just fired their coach in New Orleans because they lost to the Carolina Panthers. I think they are blunt guts trash right now, and their Saints, that run defense is pretty poor. They're allowing 5.1 yards per carry. That is the second worst in the NFL. They're allowing 2.7 yards before contact. That is the most in the NFL. Atlanta's got a good offensive line, so I think they are going to be able to open up some lanes for Bijan and Algier, if you want to know the truth, before they get contacted. My man Prop was talking about some of the stuff on Stats Hub. Avoided tackles is a very interesting category, in my opinion, and Bijan is 4th in the league with 37 avoided tackles so far this season. He's gone over this number of 74.5 in 3 of his last 4. His 632 rushing yards is top 10 in the NFL. Another great stat over at Stats Hub is the success rate. Okay, and that's basically depending on the down and distance. In essence, to not overcomplicate it, it's keeping you on schedule, right? Like a good run on first down, a good run on second down, converting on third or fourth down. And the Atlanta Falcons as a team have one of the top 5 rates there at over 44%. I also believe, listen, I told you that I think the Saints right now are not doing right well. So it's only a 3.5-point spread, but I like Atlanta to put up some points and then also be closing it, which needs more carries for Bijan Robinson. So I went on over to our projections, and FTN is projecting 79 yards for Bijan. To me, that's fine to go over the 74.5. You put it all together, and I think this is a fine bet on -110 at Bet365. Let me ask you guys real quick, though. I also have Atlanta in some survivor pools this week, and people are telling me, hey, you don't want to do the road team. You don't want to do the division matchup. And there are narratives out there about when a team fires their coach, right? So, Sam, I know you're smiling. I know you're laughing. Do you think somehow the Saints bow up a little bit for the interim coach?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I would recommend staying away from this on your survivor. I mean, I kind of do buy into the narrative. I mean, we've all seen it so many times where this team is just dog crap terrible, and immediately as soon as they fire their head coach, it's out of nowhere, they pull off the upset. So as far as picking sides, especially if I'm on the team that didn't make the coaching change or whatever, I mean, I'm just going to be hands off of it. It's just, I don't know. I think it is sort of a narrative that I do buy into. I mean, you look at the way Dennis Allen treats his dudes. I mean, it wouldn't be shocking to me at all to see this team rally. I mean, I understand, like, you look at it on paper, I think Atlanta is the much better coach team, much better talent. I think, Kirk Cousins is a much better quarterback than Derek Carr. But again, it's just, aside from the division, it's just rallying around the new head coach. It's just something that I personally like to stay away from. So.
Listen, I understand, Sam. I think Lattimore's not there anymore either, so I do think the passing attack will be fine. And here's the other thing, Sam, and this is just personal to me. It's week 10. There's not a ton of great options this week. There's a lot of bad teams playing other bad teams, and at least in this pool, you have to make 2 picks in week 10. So that further complicates it. I am 2 of the 11 remaining entries. And so I needed to, in essence, make 4 picks, and I didn't want to double down on any of them. I had to spread it around, and that's what gets me over to the Atlanta Falcons as well. But let's go back to you, Sam, for another one of your picks. Listen, Tua Tagovailoa is back under center for the Miami Dolphins, and as long as his medulla oblongata is okay, Tyreek Hill is really excited about that, and you think he can produce against this Rams pass defense?
Yeah, this is another one where, I mean, his actual line is 74.5, which obviously if I'm taking it at 70, I think you can go to 74.5, but it's more of a rate thing for me. I mean, he's had over 70 yards in back-to-back games with Tua Tagovailoa back under center. Since then, so from weeks 8 through 9, he has a 55% air yard share, which is 5th among all players in the NFL in weeks 8 through 9. So again, like I said, he's over this number back-to-back games. You look at all of the games with, I mean, it's only 4 games, but you look at the 4 games with Tua, he's averaging 76.5 yards on a team high, 21.5% target share. That's the only reason I went down to 70 instead of the 74.5. It just gives you a little bit more of a cushion. Obviously, he's not the same player that we saw last season. I don't think it's really much different. I just think the offense isn't gelling the same right now. And I think eventually by the back end of the season, we are going to see the peak Tyreek Hill we were used to last year. But I mean, you would never get a line like this at -135 last year. So I just want to take full advantage of it. And you look at, I mean, this is the perfect matchup to get right. As a team, the Rams ranked 28th in DVOA against the pass. We just saw them get torched by JSN, 180 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to Seattle's leading receiver. And entering week 10, wide receiver 1 see the 8th most targets and average the 8th most receiving yards per game against LA. And then this is another tool that I always look at, the DVOA adjusted fantasy points against tool. So according to that, wide receiver one see a plus 21% boost over their average production against the Rams. So Tyreek Hill getting a boost in this matchup. I mean, I think he gets 70 yards pretty easily. If you guys saw the game last week, I mean, he had, I think, 6 yards going to the fourth quarter. So he pretty much had 80 yards in the fourth quarter. And I mean, that's just the last thing that I saw about him. And I see a number like this at minus 135. I'm going to be all over it.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, I think you were talking about it also a couple of weeks ago, or when Mimi was mentioning it. Like, usually we see his number in the high 80s, low 90s, right? So to be able to get the number in the 70s, and the way you played it, just at 70 or anything above that, I like that as well. This Rams defense, I can see the Rams also scoring. I can see this one being a back and forth game a little bit. And with someone like Tyreek Hill, all you need is the ball in his hands and he can go the distance, right? So with that kind of yak potential, you got to like someone like Tyreek Hill. Prop, I want to go over to you. I know we were looking for props here in this Pittsburgh-Washington matchup, what I think is a very interesting matchup, right? Two first place, kind of surprise first place teams in the National Football League. And I know you were looking for props for Najee Harris. They haven't dropped out a lot of the books. You have found some over on Sleeper, and still talk to me why, whether it's relative to this number or in general, you think Najee is going to be able to continue having success. I think he's gone over the century mark his last 3 games in a row, right, Prop? Can't hear you, Prop. There you go. Let us know, man.
It does that every show now, right? I don't know why.
It happened yesterday, but let me tell the people this. It happened yesterday, and then when he came back, he gave us Domantas Sabonis over 7.5 assists, and the man hit double digits, okay? So he's about to give you a winning play, so you got to bear with us for the technical difficulties and just smash what he's going to tell you right now. Go ahead, Prop.
Yeah, we had the ladder there. We're going to take the ladder this time, too. So Najee Harris, 65.5 rush yards. Like you said, it's available on DFS right now. It should come out at the same line on the books. Take it up to 100. That's what I'm going to do. The century mark, he's going forward in 4 straight games now. You look at Stats Hub. I'm looking at the advanced metrics for this Commanders defense. They're allowing the 5th most yards after contact at 2.7. Yeah. Kind of the same cap that I did when he faced the Raiders, who also allow 2.7 yards after contact. That's when the 100-yard streak started for Najee. So we went right back to the well. Explosive runs. The Commanders are giving up 41 runs of over 10 plus yards. So they're just behind the Colts. We know the Steelers, they want to run the football first and set the tone there. And then that opens up the passing game for us. They now have Mike Williams too. So I think it's a great game for them to ground and pound, get those deep shots going. And then, we'll talk about the Steelers a little bit more later. But I think this number is just too low for Najee. They haven't adjusted it. It's been 65.5 for 4 straight weeks. So,
yeah, I'm with you here, Prop. I'm with you. I talked to you about Najee going over the century mark. He's been doing it, for the last month or so. And I'm not even going to worry about the prop in this game. Just give me the Steelers. Give me the Steelers getting the field goal here against Washington. I got a lot of the same stuff you just said, Prop. Najee, some of what he's been doing. That Washington run defense, giving up the 3rd most rushing yards so far in the NFL, almost 1,300 yards so far on the ground, 5.1 yards per carry they give up. That's the 2nd most. You talked about the explosive runs as well. 2nd most, as you mentioned, to Indianapolis. But even more than Indianapolis is if you look at the percentage of runs that are over 10 or more yards. They give up explosive runs over 16% of the time. That is literally the highest in the NFL. You also know, I know, Prop, you ride with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. The standard is the standard. And Mike Tomlin is actually, get this, as an underdog in the Mike Tomlin era, they are 61, 35, and 4 ATS. So I like that. That's about a 60%, at least 60% clip. We will take that. They're also coming off the bye, so they are rested. I like that. And also on the other side, here's the deal. Don't get me wrong. I love what Jaden Daniels is doing. He's the rookie of the year. He's been a revelation. But Has he ever faced a defense like this yet in his career? I don't think so. The Pittsburgh Steelers are giving up less than 15 points a game at 14.9. That is the second lowest in the NFL. So to me, I think there's going to be some regression from this Washington offense because they're going to have pressure on them. They're going to have Joey Porter Jr. on Terry, and also the other thing, and I talked about this with Meanie on the SiriusXM show, Pittsburgh went out this week and they made moves. Okay. Yeah. They didn't make huge moves. I mean, Mike Williams, Preston Smith, right? But there is something, and Washington did this a little bit as well, right? Bringing in Lattimore. But I think the teams that kind of go for it, you get a little bit of a boost in that locker room. You get these guys saying, yo, front office believes in me. Let's go and kind of, continue the momentum. I think this is going to be a lower scoring output from Washington, which puts the field goal in play. And also, since Russ has been there, I know it's against the Jets and the Giants, but they're certainly scoring a lot more points than they did under Justin Fields. Now, I have shares of Justin Fields. He was on my fantasy teams. I liked what he did for the offense. He went 4-2. He had 5 touchdowns, but they have been throwing the ball a little bit better under Russ, and I think they're going to be able to make hay against this Washington Commanders defense. So give me the Pittsburgh Steelers here, plus a full field goal. I know, Sam, you were talking about that you were surprised that it went from 2.5 in a lot of places to 3, giving you that full key number. So I can only assume you like the Steelers as a dog a little bit as well.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked about that. I mean, you yourself, I feel like just a lot of sharps were pounding the table on Pittsburgh this week. I know Mike Randall, he just had Pittsburgh as his money line underdog. So yeah, this one really caught me off guard. I mean, I was thinking that if anything, this would probably be between 1.5. Pretty much everything you said. I mean, how many times can we keep counting out Pittsburgh? I mean, I know I was a victim to, the first couple weeks. Like, yeah, they beat Atlanta. Atlanta didn't look good, but how long can they keep this up? We were talking about the Jets versus Pittsburgh game. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Russ in his first start against the Jets, like, I don't know how that's going to go. But, I mean, they just keep proving us wrong. And I think it's pretty definitively clear that Russ was probably the better quarterback in training camp, and we're seeing clear evidence of that. I mean, the defense has been rock solid all season long. The offense is finally just rolling. So, I mean, I'm not going to say Russell Wilson is prime Russell Wilson, but I mean, he has shades of it. Like, he just looks straight up really good. And I like what you said about the trade deadline. It's pretty clear that they're pushing their chips into the table right now. You said it. They didn't make any big moves, but they were in the market for Devontae Adams. They were in the market for Brandon Ayuk. They managed to get Mike Williams and Adam Thielen, but that's not just moves you make for for just a toss-away season. I mean, they're one-year rentals where they want to go all in. So yeah. I definitely think that Mike Tomlin is just finally going all into this season. I mean, for years, it's just they're barely good enough to make the playoffs, first-round exit. I'm sure Tomlin's sick of that. So, yeah, I like Pittsburgh here as well.
Fair enough. Big shout out to Frank out there helping us out, saying smash that like button, boys and gals out there. It is absolutely free. Sam, let me go back to you. I was surprised that we went from 2.5 to 3 on that game. Another game that's out there that you like, and you have been on this team all season long. And I think you got to feel a little bit more comfortable because this number is still under that key number of 3 for the full field goal there on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to keep riding until they let me down. So, I mean, I feel like it's just a copy and paste. Again, just like I said last week, they're undefeated on the road. Again, they'll be traveling on the road. They get that long week. So, entering week 10, I mean, they were up 21 points against Green Bay before easing off the gas. I mean, this team can do whatever they want against whoever they want. They have the one loss on the season, but by our number, they're just the best team top to bottom. They're averaging a league high 32.1 points per game. Like I mentioned earlier with Buffalo, this is the number 1 team in point differential, plus 13.8 point differential on the season. The only team with a double-digit point differential. They're first, like I said, first overall in DVOA as a team, first on special teams, top 4 on offense and defense. So just top to bottom, it's just a well-built team, no weaknesses whatsoever. And we just saw what this Houston offense looks. I mean, Jets are a decent defense. I feel like they get overrated, that they're not nearly the same unit as they were last year. But, I mean, the Texans just couldn't get anything going against the Jets. And that, I think that some of it has to do with Nico Collins. I mean, that was the first game that we saw no Nico Collins or Stephon Diggs. And just Tank Dell out there, I just don't think they're going to be able to have enough firepower to hang with this Detroit offense. Detroit's offense, I mean, they have these games where they just don't have to do much just because their defense just dominates the game or special team. They can just beat you in all aspects of the game. And I think Houston, they do have this giant lead over the division. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's like a must-win game for Houston. I think they just want to get healthy. And we were talking about this before the show. I don't expect Nico Collins to be back this week. They did act, or he is eligible to come off the IR, but he hasn't practiced. He didn't practice yesterday. And just like reading through the beat reporters, I mean, it looks like they're going to hold him back just at least one more week. Again, like I said, if they didn't have this massive lead on the division, maybe they try and ramp him up, but I don't think that they can risk that. So, I think these two teams are just a mismatch for now, and I think Detroit rolls them.
Fair enough. And you're getting those Lions under a field goal. When you talk about Houston, listen, I'm here in the New York area. I am actually a Jets fan. I do think the Jets defense is good, but the part of it is they and everybody else is getting pressure on CJ Stroud. If you go on over to Stats Hub, the 130 pressures he's had so far this season is the most in the league, right? I actually thought in the trade deadline, forget getting a wide receiver, I thought they needed to get an offensive lineman from somewhere. I was talking about Dallas maybe trading an interior offensive lineman over to Houston because that's what they really need to keep CJ Stroud upright. I think when Nico comes back with Tank Dell, Joe Mixon in the backfield, even a guy like Schultz, I think they have enough weapons. They just need to protect CJ Stroud. I think that's been the biggest difference. And then when you talk about Detroit, Sam, absolutely a wagon. You reference DVOA here all the time. Our guy Aaron Schatz, the father of DVOA, I saw him giving an interview earlier this week where he said not only is Detroit the number one team in DVOA, but that they are one of the top 10 DVOA teams through this point of the season of all time since they've been doing this metric, right? So the gap between Detroit to 2 and 3, which I believe he has as Baltimore and Kansas City, are even big time, and Detroit really performing as one of the best teams, not only in the league, but in terms of the stats, in terms of those metrics, one of the best teams we've seen in the NFL for a long time. Prop, let me go to you. We got another team. A lot of teams in the NFC North, though, see themselves as playoff teams, right? You got Green Bay, and you also have the Minnesota Vikings, who are undefeated at the beginning, have kind of hit a little bit of a snag, but they have a juicy matchup against Jacksonville. And I know you're on their running back to make hay in the passing game.
Yes, sir. Aaron Jones, over 17.5 receiving yards. This line is just I can't say the word I want to say because we're on YouTube, but it makes no sense to me. They've played 8 games this season. He's over in 7 out of 8, and that includes 7 straight. He only went over in week 1 against the Giants when he had 15 yards. You look at the Jaguars secondary, they're allowing the most second most passing yards per game, 264. Second highest completion percentage allowed with 70.7%. Completion percentage, like we talked about earlier, there's just certain matchups where you fade a team every week. I fade the Jaguars somehow every week. And if you look at the target share for the Vikings, Jordan Addison is supposed to be wide receiver 2, but it's really Aaron Jones. Target share is Justin Jefferson, 27.5%. Next is Aaron Jones at 11.6%, and then it's Jordan Addison at 11.2%. Addison had a good game last week, but Jones has been consistent. He has 25 receptions compared to only 16 on the season for Jordan Addison. Then lastly, if you using the FTN fantasy points defense versus position tool, the Jaguars are allowing the 3rd most receiving yards per game to opposing running backs, 49 receiving yards per game on 6 receptions. So I think this line is just simply too low. It should be at about 21.5, even 20.5, but 17.5 is a smash spot for Aaron Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not mad at you. I got another prop in this game mimicking a lot of the stuff you're saying out here, man. I saw the same thing. I've been fading this Jaguars pass defense, all season long. To your point, They've given up 2,500 yards via the air so far, 2nd most in the NFL, only to Baltimore. And that Baltimore stuff is a lot of garbage time because Baltimore is up, right? The DVOA and the actual metrics suggest that the Jaguars are one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. They give up 8.2 yards per attempt. That's bottom 3. They've given up 19 touchdowns through the air. That is the most in the NFL. And then you said it yourself, Prop. They have allowed a 70.7 completion percentage percentage against them. And then you also look at Darnold. Darnold on the other side, he's completing 73.4% of his passes. That's second best in the NFL behind only Jared Goff. That's ahead of guys like Jaden Daniels, who we've seen in terms of that completion percentage, right? The other thing that I think is interesting, and this is a great stat over at Stats Hub, is a clean pocket. Okay. And sometimes when you have some of these kind of statue non-mobile quarterbacks, I like the clean pocket. And the Jaguars allow their opposing quarterbacks to throw from a clean pocket 73% of the time. That is bottom five. So when I see Sam Darnold, and I know that he can complete passes, and I know that he's throwing from a clean pocket, I think that's a recipe for him to complete some passes. The one thing you mentioned, Prop, you talked about the target share for Aaron Jones and how it's second on the team above Addison, right? Obviously, there's Jets there, but there is a new element to the Vikings pass game as of last week, and that's the guy I'm going with. It's tight end TJ Hawkinson, and his number is also, in my opinion, criminally low at 31.5 receiving yards. Listen, guys, this was the tight end 2 last year in fantasy. Last year, TJ Hawkinson in 15 games had 95 catches and 960 yards. If you look back at last season, he went over 32 yards, which is what he would need in this one, in 14 of his 15 games. Prop already told you about the Jaguars pass defense. I already told you about the Jaguars pass defense. Here's the other thing. Last week, it was his return from the knee injury. He had 3 catches and 27 yards. You would think, but speeds, that's below the prop. Here's the thing. He was only on the field for 45% of the snaps in his return from the knee injury. I expect that number to grow. And when him getting more and more snaps, I think he's going to get more and more targets. The tight end is that security blanket. When you add it all up, forget about Addison. I think Hawkinson is going to be involved in this Minnesota Vikings, my 3 sons offense between Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson. Aaron Jones's number, I'm with you as well, Prop, but I think Hawkinson is going to be able to eat. They're all going to be able to eat against this Jacksonville Jaguars pass defense. So there you have it, guys. We've got a couple of props from each of us. I got to encourage you all, as always, go on over to the prop shop, go on over to these tools, but the prop shop, it's free, okay? You can put in any player, any team, and you can get all the numbers, all the juice across everywhere. Last thing I want to do with you guys is this. We always do it. Don't force it, but it is week 10. I told you one of my survivor plays. It's getting a little bit hard to do so. We also like to try to give out a dog if we can. So, guys, when I look at here are the, all the odds, all the games. Sam, I'll start with you real quick. You got any dogs you like here in week 10? Or if you don't like my Falcons as a survivor, where might you go if you're still available in that kind of format?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can really call a 1-point spread a dog, but I'm looking at the Jets here. I'm sorry, Arizona. Just said they're going to be at home. This is just something that moved. I think it opened at Arizona -1. Now you're seeing it the Jets. I guess that's what sort of threw me off. I thought the Jets were still dogs here, so I guess I would probably just side with you guys with Pittsburgh, but nothing really stands out other than that.
Fair enough. Prop, you got anything on the way out here? Knockouts, dogs? I know you're probably on Pittsburgh as well. Are we all in solidarity here with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin?
Yeah, besides Pittsburgh, I would look at the Patriots. There's no way on earth the Chicago Bears should be laying 6.5 points to anyone. They're terrible.
Yeah, I like that. And also, that's a low total game. And when you look at the math, in low-scoring games, the idea of what 6.5 points is a lot more, right? If the game is going to be in the 30s, then all of a sudden, 6.5 points is a lot more than a game that is in the 50s. Well, all right, guys, we got to get on out of here. From my man Sam, from my man Prop, you can catch all of their work all the time here over at FTN. Remember, you got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to get down with the family to be able to access some of these tools that we continue to talk about over at FTN Fantasy. Trust me, your balance will thank you. Come on back next week, whether it's on the NBA betting show or right here on the NFL betting show. You get some winners. Make them now before these lines move, and hopefully you have a profitable week 10. We out of here. We'll see you next time around, guys. Peace.